Welcome, my lovely learners, to today's activity. We'll be looking at science and industries. Science and industries in natural science. Now, what is our main objective for today? We are learning to explain food spoilage, to identify some food crops that can hurt, that can spoil. Also, we are identifying causes of what? Food spoilage. Some causes of food spoilage. Now, let's quickly explain what the word or the term food spoilage means. Food spoilage is a process in which food deteriorates to the point that it cannot be used. I'm saying it's a process by which food deteriorates to a point that it cannot be used. Why am I saying so? Sometimes in our daily activities with our foodstuffs, we realize that storage is one of the major problems we face at home. We are not able to store our food crops well, hence leading to the spoilage. Alright, in these activities, we will be learning to what? Look at this picture for me. Look at this picture. Good. You can see in the picture that I have orange and apple, lettuce, onion, bread together, as we can all see. Because we are not able to preserve this foodstuff well, they all gotten rotten. Now, what can we do to prevent these rotten foodstuffs? Look at this. Before then, let's identify some raw foodstuffs that can get spoiled or that can get rotten. One, we have yam here, maize, cassava, okra, pepper, tomatoes, and onion. We have a lot of these foodstuffs. We have cabbage and other stuffs, garlic. Imagine, we have a lot at home. If you are not able to preserve these foodstuffs well, you realize that the yam can spoil, the maize can spoil, cassava the same, okra, pepper, and all these things. Why will this spoil? Now, the yam you need to dry. The only means by which you can preserve this yam is what? Drying. You dry the yam. The maize too, you dry the maize. If it is well dried, I believe the maize will not spoil. Look at the cassava. The cassava, you don't dry the cassava unless you peel it. When it is fresh, sometimes in the olden days they will only dig a place in the house, then put some quantity of water in the hole, then put the cassava in it and cover the cassava back with the soil. In other words, when it is a peeled cassava, when you peel the cassava, the only way you can store that peeled cassava is by drying. You only dry it on the sun. Okra, how do you preserve it? We will be looking at that. Let's continue. Some causes of what? Food spoilage. What are some of these causes? Let's look at this. What are some of these causes? One, we said temperature is a factor. 2, physical damage. 3, insects. 4, air and light. We have a lot of factors, but these are just few written on the board. Now let's look at temperature. We say how hot or cool a body is. So if a foodstuff that is supposed to be under higher temperature is stored at a cool temperature, you realize that it will spoil. Let's take maize. Maize is supposed to be dried on the sun, but when you keep fresh maize in your room whereby there is no sunshine, because of lower temperature, the maize will spoil. But when you put the maize on the sun, you realize that the maize will dry and you can use it for a longer period. Let's look at the physical damage that we are talking about. Physical damage. Now, when you take your foodstuff, look at these pictures. You realize that this is tomato, cassava, yam, onion. Good. The damage that I'm talking about here is, for instance, you are bringing the tomatoes from the market. When these tomatoes or objects fall down, you realize that it will get a mark. The mark that it will get is the damage that we are talking about. It will not look fresh as it is now. There will be mark on the tomatoes, whether cassava, onion, or the yam. So if there is a mark on it like that, the freshness will not last longer. You realize that within some short period it will spoil. So when it happens like this, I earlier on show some examples of food stuff that got rotten. Let's look at it again. My orange, my apple, my ginger, my lettuce, cabbage, and that food stuff. All these things got damaged because it is not transported well. Now, let's look at the insect that we are talking about. Sometimes when the food crop are on the field or they have transported them to the market, but because of inappropriate care taken for them, a lot of flies or insects will just perch on the vegetables and perch them. When they perch, they only buy them. Whatever they are looking for the juice from the vegetables or the food crop. So they will just sip some of this fluid from the vegetables, and that will lead to the mark of that spoilage. Now let's look at this also. Air. We said air is also a factor that causes food to what? Spoil. When you have your foodstuffs over there, there is no air going through or blowing over the foodstuff. You realize that the place will be very hot. Instead of the place to be dry, the place will be hot or warm, so that you cannot even have access to whatever you wanted to use your vegetables with. Let's look at light. Light can be compared to the first example, that is temperature, but the light, how bright the environment is. Some food stuff needs brighter environment to be able to stay longer. Don't worry, keep note of the prevention. And then the importance of what? Keeping our foods preserved. Till we meet again, bye-bye.